Hi, we're Auction Conservation, and this is the Shoe Room Sessions. Hi, Lara.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Shoe Room.
Thanks very much.
How long has it been since we did your first episode?
Was it Christmas last year? Because the whole team was here.
Yeah, it's Q0, right?
Oh, it's Q0. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Nice.
Yeah.
You better quickly tell people who you are and what you do.
I'm Lara. I'm the spatial data expert OC. Do you want more detail?
Always. What does a day for Lara look like?
Days are very different. But I feel like there's a couple of major things I'd say that I work on. There's all of the work about our existing portfolio. There's all of our estates. There's all of the amazing data that we've collected on all of those. It's managing all of that data. It's making that data available to people in the team who need it, making cool maps, making cool visualizations, and just generally working with the data that we have on the estates. Part of that is also working with all of the estate teams. So a big push for me recently has been just making the data that we have more available to people. I felt like for a while I was hoarding that data, and now I'm like,
Mine, stay away.
Everyone needs access to the data to be able to do their jobs to the best as possible.
So you literally talk about democratizing data, don't you?
Yeah. But isn't that so important? Because I realized people were giving me a lot of requests for things and they wanted information, and I was like, I need to make this information available to people at the click of a mouse. They shouldn't be asking me for data that they need to be able to do their job on a day-to-day basis. Just make it all available, make a web page. It's all there. They can access it. They can play around with it. They can use it as they need, and then they can get their jobs done that much quicker. So that's been super important.
Cool, so that's half the coin.
Yeah, that's one half. And then the other half, well, I guess there's also maybe an additional third half. Can you have a third half?
We have, by the sounds of it.
So the second part is finding new estates. So our portfolio is amazing. We want to make it bigger. We want to make it better. We want to add to it. So it's finding the perfect new estates to do that. And then the third, probably not a full half, is kind of data about the team. So things like the daily survey, the mileage, some carbon footprint data.
This has really increased as an area of work recently for you as well.
Yeah, it has. So that's been really fun to work on.
Cool. Can we talk about the daily survey?
Yeah, I love the daily survey.
Do you? Good.
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad. I adore it.
Yeah.
What is it, Lara?
So we have a survey that goes out to everyone in the team every morning at, I think, 7 a.m. or it might be 8 a.m. And it's a really just quick fire survey. It comes to your inbox. You click a link, you answer 4 questions, 1 to 10, about how was yesterday, how are you feeling today, what's your workload like, and how confident you're going to perform well. It takes 30 seconds to do. You fill it in and just forget about it. And then we have a few automated processes in the back end that kind of listen for those surveys and think, has anyone answered anything particularly exciting? Did they have a 10 out of 10 day yesterday, or is it like anything particularly concerning?
We have had some 10s, right?
We've had loads of 10s.
Yeah,
we get 10s all the time, which is really nice. Or is anyone saying anything a bit worrying? Did they have a bad day yesterday? They're not feeling very confident. So we have some automations that are listening for those, and they shoot off emails if anything's kind of comes from those to people's line managers, just asking them, check in with this person. Maybe just see why they had a bad day or see why they had a good day, and just connect with them and hear a bit more about that. And then we also have live dashboards with all of the data from all of the surveys coming in. So, Rich, you can see everyone's kind of average scores for the day compared to all-time averages. So, are the team particularly busy at the moment, or are they particularly quiet? You can look and see if, again, there are kind of high scorers or low scorers on there. You can see how many people have responded for the day. And we have that dashboard as well for people with their individual teams. So for marketing, finance, natural capital, there's like separate cuts of the data with different people that all the managers can go and see how everyone's getting on a day-to-day basis.
So why do we need it? Why is it important?
I think it's just a really nice way to check in with people. We're all very busy, and it's very easy to just get on with your work all the time. And managers especially might not want to, might not be wanting to reach out to someone every day and be like, how are you? And are you feeling okay? And I think it just gives the opportunity for people to like, raise a little flag without having to make a big deal out of it. You can just raise a little flag and be like, I'm struggling, but you don't have to kind of voice that as dramatically. It might feel like as if you were, calling someone or sending them a message. It just allows you to do a little, this is what's happening with me today.
Because we're all remote, you can't see somebody walk in the door. So I think if you're a good line manager and a good person, you end up being quite intuitive about being able to have like a spidey sense about if someone's struggling or having a bad day, or you can read something in their body language or demeanor. It's very hard to do that if you can't see them or hear them or talk to them and they're just at the other end of the country. So I think the intent is to give people the opportunity to, as you say, just a little flag if they want to. The challenge I sometimes, when I talk to, because I adore the tool, and it very much comes from the elite college sports programs in the US, where all their athletes have a gym session every morning at 6 or whatever, and they walk in and they hit 4 questions on an iPad, and by the time they walk to their station, their weights program's been calibrated automatically with how well did you sleep, how tired are you, how hydrated are you, etc. I was like, well, if we can do an element of that, sadly I'm not allowed to mandate weight training sessions, so I'm quite yet. Penny's like, I'd do it. I'm all in. But it allows us to do a version of that. But the challenge I get back is, people will just lie about their numbers. So have we seen people raise low scores and things like that? And if so, why do you think they're comfortable to do it?
Yeah, all the time. And people have bad days. I see bad scores. I see high scores. It's really variable. But yeah, I do think people are generally honest. I think we have a very open, honest and transparent culture in general. And I like to think that people feel empowered to be honest in these situations. If something's gone wrong, they're happy to tell other people and they're happy to ask for help. And I think that we've always been like that as a business. I don't think anyone would ever be afraid to say, I've got too much work on, or something really difficult happened yesterday. And I think that's really important.
Have you ever logged a low number?
Yeah, definitely. I think I did a couple of weeks ago. I had a day off sick in the end. And yeah, I was just feeling really, really awful. Logged a low number. Chris checked in with me. We had a chat. And then from that,
persuaded you to take some time away.
Which it was something that had come up in a Blackstone call as well. Anyway.
George did a really good one on that, didn't he? So it was really lovely seeing like senior members of the team call out, no, I logged this. So we had a meeting that we didn't get to the right outcome we wanted at the meeting, and George logged a low number, and it allowed me to go back and ask the question, and we could deep dive it and actually fundamentally change the way we did something. And he said, I probably wouldn't have raised it if Rich hadn't have asked, because there's so much going on and you have to decide which bits to raise, and
that's the thing.
It was just a useful prompt for a conversation.
Exactly. Which you might not have otherwise had.
Yeah.
So.
And Penny did one of those when you were poorly, and then when we rang you and your like whoop was going off that you thought you were doing a gym session because your heart rate was
130. Wow. Oh, that's
go to bed.
Yeah, Elle called me and she was like, "You're a 1." I can work.
But it works on both ways, because especially for people who haven't, so we're an unusual culture anyway, and I love that you describe it as open and supportive, because that was always the intent. But for people who don't work in it, it also helps them understand what the culture is like as well, because you can't demonstrate that you genuinely care and are compassionate about people without an opportunity to. So almost, I think people say, no one will be honest about it. They're projecting their culture and experiences onto ours. Because if someone gives you a low score or a high score, how you react to that is what determines their confidence to do it again in future, I think.
Yeah, I think if you're at the point where you're going to lie about that, I like to think that you'd be like, why am I lying?
Yeah, and am I working in the right place?
Yeah, you'd have some questions for yourself there.
I wouldn't have been honest in the public sector.
Yeah.
At all. Like, if you wanted to derail someone's career in the public sector, you'd say, they seem a bit stressed.
Oh.
Yeah,
really?
there's a famous Doctor Who episode where he whispers to the media about the Prime Minister, doesn't she look tired?
Oh, yeah.
And they go after her about, oh my God, oh, she's struggling, she's struggling. That's what would happen in the public sector. They'd be like, oh, I think they're a little stressed. And if you were tarnished with that, you were done exactly
That's
right.
really interesting because when I was consulting, being a GS consultant, my previous job, I did some work with local councils, and I really found that it almost felt like a badge of honor for them to be really stressed. They kind of loved to be like, I've got way too much work and we don't have enough people and I'm so stressed. And that was
is their
like,
favourite narrative.
Yeah.
That we don't have enough people.
yeah.
So 3 fundamental parts of your role.
Yeah.
Which is your favourite?
Oh, that's such a hard question. Because I've got elements of all of them that I really like.
Also, the fact there's 3 halves
Yeah.
is why we're recruiting for you at the moment as well, which
that's
is
a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's elements of all of them that I really like, but elements of them that I like less. I think that's a really difficult question. Like for the portfolio data that we have, like building the data hub, working with Charles and the estate managers, and like building all of the apps and the fact that everyone's now using the GIS and doing all the stuff like that, I absolutely love that.
because you've built individual bespoke apps and systems that we literally prefer and rival over commercially available products. You know, we've had people want to license tools and stuff you've developed so far.
Yeah, I have people ask me about stuff. We have sometimes external people using, for example, the deer stalking app, and they're like, "We love this. Like, where did you get it?" And I'm
Can you
like,
explain what that
yeah.
does and is?
Yeah, so it's a mobile app that we use to record all. Well, it's not even just deer calls now. It was just deer calls for a while, but it's all kind of herbivore management now, I guess. And just so we employ the deer stalkers. They go out, they do a call, they record the location on their phone. They record some information about. It automatically records the date and time and where they are. They record, the species, the kind of size, the sex, and kind of any other information they might want to put in. And then that they press submit. That automatically goes up to a dashboard that we have in the data hub that is then keeping track of every single call we've ever done, when it was, and progress towards our targets that we need to meet in order to get them down to kind of reasonable levels for the landscape. And it's just such a good system because previously, people were recording things in Excel. Sometimes people were even recording things on paper. They were writing stuff down, and then they would have
With
to.
a lot of states, not at all.
Yeah, or not at all. But then we wanted that information, and then they would have to spend time writing that information up to send to us, and then I would have to process that data and get it into a good format and report on it. Whereas right now, and everything I've built, I don't have to do anything now. They record the information on the app. The information comes into the dashboard. Charles and whoever else wants to see it can see it, and I'm like completely now not involved in that on a day-to-day basis, but it's doing everything that it needs to do, which is like a very satisfying feeling, and it's making everyone's lives a lot quicker and easier just to do their day-to-day jobs as well.
I think so many of the things you do end up being force multipliers for us. They're like a tool that allows, so that example has improved efficiency, effectiveness, and the autonomy of people. And it's allowed us to share more information within the team and to the deer management groups and things like that. So it's just super, super important.
Yeah, I really like to build something that then saves people time. And that's what feels really good. And then that frees up their time to do their job better, and they're not having to faff around with processes that are inefficient. And that's what, I really like to do.
So if we move to the one of the other of the 3 halves, the acquisition and finding new land.
Yeah.
Surely that's easy to find land, isn't it?
Well, if it was easy, then wouldn't everyone have done it?
I guess so.
I don't know.
What makes it so challenging and fun, Lara?
Well, it's an interesting challenge, isn't it? It's like we're wanting to find effectively damaged or not good condition, or like landscape which could be improved or made better, but also trying to find it at a good price as well. So it's a balance between how much an estate or a piece of land might be worth, and then what's the kind of potential for nature restoration projects. So I think there's not just a data set out there that's like nature restoration potential. Like that doesn't exist. We've had to build that effectively.
And what are some of the factors that you consider when we're looking at nature restoration potential?
So we look at things like, the habitat type. So what's there now, and kind of what that could then become.
How many habitat types do we recognise?
Oh, so many. I don't know. The problem is as well that it's they use different systems in Scotland, England, Wales. The data sets that we have, they're all different habitat types. So, even if there's 30 at least in the English one, there's then another different 30 in the Scottish ones, and then different again.
Yeah, and they don't fully cross over. And
No.
you and I wrote a piece a few years ago now about the challenges of environmental data and how, the arbitrary borders of where it breaks and different frequencies and timings and monitoring regimes and everything.
Exactly. So we look at different habitat types, and then it's like, well, then what's kind of a potential appropriate project on that habitat type? If it's blanket bog, then peatland restoration, that's kind of fairly straightforward. But which habitats would be suitable for woodland creation? But then it's not just about the habitats. It's like we want it to be a particular habitat, but we're also like, we don't want it to be a high grade piece of agricultural land. We don't want it to be a really steep slope where trees aren't, not appropriate place for trees to grow. We don't want it to interfere with things like scheduled monuments. There's just so many different factors and data sets and things that we consider when we're thinking about things like that.
Well, in terms of the scale, so I was going to ask, do you know off the top of your head how big the British Isles is?
Oh God.
Do we do this?
We have done this before, because I've done this with you when we were working out that initial, like, how much land do we want, and we wanted 0.5% of rural Britain.
That's right, and that was going to be like 250,000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So does that make it 50 million acres?
That seems about
I think 47 sticks
right
or something.
Yeah.
So it's 47 million acres. And do you remember how many individual estates or land parcels we had?
In the whole of the UK?
Yeah. Because even that's a hard question to answer, right?
Yeah. Well, there was about 3,600 in Scotland estates, but they're so much bigger. In England, it was at least 10,000, 15,000. Actually, it's much smaller landholdings.
And of that, only a small number of those would ever meet the criteria that we'd be looking for in terms of scale and the right type of environments to work in, and would even be buyable. So, things like the National Trust, they can't sell land even if they wanted to. And, we don't want to buy land from other conservation organisations because it's doing the right thing anyway.
Yeah, so it's like a constant, you start with this huge data set, and then you're constantly like cutting it down and removing things for different reasons. So yeah, it goes a lot fewer than you would think, a lot quicker.
Yeah. And so you've recently run our modelling for 2025, and you've found a range of estates that we potentially might be interested in. So that's effectively set the realistic market size for what we think acquisition-based natural capital could provide in the UK.
Yeah.
How many estates are we talking about?
So that was, I think, about 120 in Scotland that had pretty good potential. And then we cut that down to 50 that were especially good. And then maybe 400 or 500 in England.
Yeah, and I think that totaled somewhere between 12 and 20 billion pounds worth of value if you factor in built property or not.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because there's so much talk about the amount of money that's needed for nature and in the environment. Now, we're only looking through one lens because we want to acquire the land to ensure we can deliver the impact. But 20 billion pounds for an investment sector when UK pension funds are sat on 3 trillion, it's not the biggest market. It's quite a constrained market in terms of land.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
What do you hope we buy this year in terms of a type of landscape?
Well, I feel like Dorback was probably would have been on my like wish list. Massive, amazing estate in the Cairngorms. So
it was a really special acquisition, wasn't it? Yeah. Because it took 9 months to buy.
Yeah.
And bringing it in just before Christmas was really cool.
Yeah. I feel like if I was channeling my inner Chris Winter, I'd be like big dirty peat bog that needs restoration.
Yeah.
But they're not the most charismatic to visit.
Chris is going to be horrified when he goes this, isn't he?
I think he would agree. But I do think that it would be an interesting addition to the portfolio, but it might not be quite as fun to visit as it would Dorback or Invergilde.
Yeah. And what's your appetite for us acquiring more land in England?
England, I think, has some exciting potential with BNG. I think there's still a lot up in the air about the kind of the demand for BNG in different areas. I think that's something that even we don't really fully understand yet, and something that I want to do more research on. But I think, yeah, a huge, big estate in England could be really, well, I think it would be a lot of publicity for us. I think it would be, a lot more in the public eye potentially than Scotland. So I think it would be interesting.
When you're looking at different scenarios and considering different estates of that first pass, how do you ensure the accuracy of what we're working with? How do you assess the composition of the different data sets, and how do you know how confident you can be in their accuracy and the sort of tolerance around them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I do a lot of research into the data sets that we use initially. I think obviously finding the best data sets that you can go start is a good point. It's a good place to start. But then I think once you've done that, it's then on me, and it's about how I'm processing that data and how I'm working with it and how I'm making sure that things happen correctly and the calculations we're doing are correct and things like that. I think automation where you can and using automated tools to do calculations and to do data processing is really important. As soon as you start doing things manually, copying and pasting values, or doing things on an individual estate level one at a time, you're probably going to make mistakes. But if you have a little tool and you tell the tool what to do and you run it on 1,000 estates, it's not going to make a mistake. As long as you've created the tool correctly, it's going to do what you tell it to do. So you're going to make fewer mistakes. I think that's, a really important way of working.
Is that the
with
biggest
data.
change you've seen in the sort of data processing platforms and tools you've worked with is the level of automation over the past few years?
I think, it's definitely becoming increasingly kind of, people are increasingly wanting it, and I think it's becoming increasingly easy to do. ChatGPT writes a lot of scripts for me. I'm not a software developer, but I like to play around with stuff, and with the help of AI, it has become a lot easier. The barrier to entry is a lot lower.
Let's experiment quick and easier, right?
Exactly, and it will help me just to summarize. It will tell me what a script. Tell me what this script is doing, and I'll be like, here's a script I've written before. We change it to do something slightly different, and it'll just do it straight away. And it just saves a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of trial and error, I suppose.
What's the next evolution of that? If you think about the next year or two, how's that going to change? How's AI going to feed into your work and processes even more?
Yeah, interesting. I think I really am interested to know what we can do with machine learning and AI that we're not doing. Ultimately, I'm using AI to write a script and to do automation, but I'm not using AI or machine learning to assess an estate outright. I feel like there probably is a huge amount of potential to have some kind of AI model that just says, I'm like, look at this estate and tell me about it. That's potentially something that could happen.
We still have to do a lot of manual work around property and unique land holdings, like crofting areas and common land and things like that, where the data isn't as clearly and readily available.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's an area that automation and machine learning could help us with.
Yeah, that's true. I think when you've got a data set that you want that doesn't exist, it's kind of, is that information out there? Can you scrape it somehow? Or if that information isn't out there, can you use some kind of proxy? Can you use something else that is giving you similar information to find out the information that you want? So that's what I did for the English estates. We buy a data set of Scottish estates, but there's no data set for English estates. So I had to build that from other data sets, data sets about field parcels from the RPA, and you can use other data to create the data that you want if it's not out there already.
And that's the other challenge about the environment sector. We'd have a time machine. So say you wanted data on Formula One car performance. There's another race and another race and another race.
Yeah.
We can't go back and get anything historically. If it doesn't exist already, we can't reinvent a data set.
Yeah.
There is you could digitize data from former video footage of races and cars and things like that, but we can't.
Yeah, and not many people are doing what we want to do. Those models and all of that doesn't exist already, and I don't feel like people have thought about nature in the way that we're thinking about nature before.
That's the exciting bit too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Often I think when I look at things, it's like quite qualitative, and people talk about nature and like, oh, it's very beautiful and it's got these amazing qualities, which it does, but I've never before this job had thought about nature in terms of data in the same way, and that's just been such an interesting challenge. How do you quantify nature?
So we're doing some cool pilot stuff in Scotland with Credit Nature in terms of that side of things. How much have you been involved in that work?
Yeah, I've been involved in that. I've been helping with their baselining work. So kind of getting any data that we have, or the way that they baseline things has been different to the way that we've been collecting baselining data. So it's how can the data that we have, how can we get it to work in the format that they need to do their initial assessment? So yeah, that has been interesting. They're looking at things like, barriers in the landscape. Where are there walls and fences and ditches and things that are stopping animals and
sort of landscape level
moving.
Connectivity.
Yeah, so that's been really interesting looking at that.
That connectivity piece reminds me of my favourite fact from our portfolio. So of the 43,000 plus acres we've acquired and managed, can you remember how many other acres we connect that to?
Yeah, I did this for Elle yesterday. It's over 500,000. Yeah.
Over 500,000 acres of conservation-led land management practices we connect. That's ludicrous, isn't it?
It is pretty crazy. Yeah, it was really nice to read that. It's a very tangible thing, isn't it?
When I first read that, the first couple, I didn't believe it. I was like, it cannot be that much.
Yeah, well, I've given that a stat a few times, and I've had people come to me and be like, "Have you made a mistake? Is there an extra zero on there?" Or I know I've double, triple checked it. It's definitely right.
Are there data sets you wish were more readily available? If you could click your fingers and have it in front of you, what are those data sets?
Well, I mean, I'd like it if I could have a real data set of English estates. That would be very helpful. I think there's very little out there about general condition of landscapes. So we talked about habitat data, and habitat data sets, they are out there, and some of them are really quite good, but they don't give you any idea of the condition of those habitats. It would be broadleaf woodland, but is it in good condition or not? And there doesn't really seem to be anything out there about that.
We had Sylvain on from Mosaic Earth about their sort of crowdsourced ecology platform. Do you think that might be a route to getting us some of that condition information?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, I remember looking at I listened to his podcast. Everyone's got a phone, everyone's got a way of recording information. I'll take a photo, take a video. It should be relatively easy to get that data if you've got thousands of people doing it. It's just I guess it's just processing that data and getting all of that information, getting the information that you want from that data.
Why do you think we don't have some of the things, the property data, the crofting land data, why don't they exist?
Well, the thing is, these things exist, but it's they're not in the format that you want them to exist. So property data is kind of out there. The OS, they have buildings. They have locations of all of the buildings in the UK, but nothing about those buildings. I can have a building footprint.
So they might have 10 floors or 1 floor.
Yeah, it might have 10 floors, 1 floor. It might be a barn. It might be a high-rise luxury set of flats, and it's like having half of the information that you need that I find particularly frustrating. It's like almost there, you know. I guess no one else, maybe the reason that it doesn't exist in the format we want is that no one else is wanting to do things at that scale. I don't really know. I guess it would be very expensive to create.
The crofting one surprises me because land reform and ownership and community interaction around land is such an important issue in Scotland. In the absence of that data, it makes the conversation so much more limited.
Yeah, the crofting data I'm still unsure about. I think it's out there. I think it's just a case of getting hold of it.
Difficult to unlock in one coherent data set.
I think it's also one of those things where it's partially digital. You know, people have probably on these estates have got rolled up maps with them drawn on.
Yeah, often we acquire them with databases, don't we?
Exactly. So it's a case of digitizing it, I think.
So, based on your 3 halves of your job, we're in the process of finding you an assistant, essentially.
Yeah.
What are the skill sets that person needs to have, Lara?
It's really exciting. I think I really want someone who's just, you know, really curious, someone who really likes to solve problems. I think someone who's like, I won't rest until I've solved this problem. You know, I love that. I mean, someone who's really like, I know this can be done and I don't know how to do it now, but I'm going to find out.
Relentlessly curious.
Yeah, that's what I need.
And in terms of technical background and skills, where are they going to come from?
Good question.
I'm kind of getting addicted to that phrase, right? When we do these and people say, good question, I'm like, yes, result.
Yeah, because I don't want to be too prescriptive about it. You know, I want to be open to people with different backgrounds and different ways of getting into GIS. Obviously, the way I did it, went to university, did a geography degree, worked as a GIS consultant. I feel like that's a pretty normal way of
That's the expected path. Yeah. A null hypothesis, it'll come through that route.
But I wouldn't be adverse to someone who'd gone through a different route, picked up GIS along the way somewhere in a different job or a different degree, and like found it exciting and wanted to learn more and kind of pushed themselves into that role. You know, so I don't want to be too prescriptive about who that person is. So
they're going to be working incredibly closely with you. What type of boss are you, Lara?
I like to think I'm a good one. I think I'm very open to listening to other people. I'm very interested to hear what other people have to think. Interested to hear their ideas and how they think we can make things better. I think it's been, selfishly, I've really enjoyed, you know, being the GIS person for a couple of years at OC and like being the person with the control to do everything the way that I want to do it. But I am now excited about the opportunity to have someone come in, look at the way that we do things and come up with new ideas. You know, I'm not, just because it's the way that I've done something doesn't mean it's the best way. So I'd really like to work with someone who's got cool ideas, who's got new things that maybe I haven't even considered, and we can work together to make something really cool.
Well, I have seen and know that you're the most incredibly supportive boss. So whoever gets to work with you is very lucky. What's your favourite? So we've had people come for different periods to work with you before. What's your favourite part of working with someone new in their space?
I think there's always that first, I think the first few weeks is a bit of, you know, it's a bit of getting to know each other. It's a bit of onboarding. It's a bit of getting them used to the pace of the team.
And you rock at onboarding.
I do. Onboarding is fun, to be fair. That I always do a week in the office with them.
And just take them on various adventures.
Take them on adventures.
Usually rock climbing.
Yeah, make them go bouldering with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is fun, but it's hard work, I think, for both of you. The new person is learning a lot there. There's a lot of information there. They're learning to work at the pace of the team, which I think can be a lot.
We were just saying that to Ellie off camera before, that we try and communicate that as much as possible. But I think the same is very true of any form of sport. Until you go play at that level, you don't understand the speed of it and the demand and the relentless nature of it, because it's fast and it's today, but it's coming tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. So we try and be as honest about it as possible, but can never know whether someone can comprehend or understand what we're describing.
Yeah. So that is exciting, but it's kind of hard work. And then something happens. You reach this threshold where, I don't know, you don't even realize it's happened until something comes up. I remember with our previous JS intern, Beth.
We miss you, Beth.
We do miss you, Beth. I know it was just a really busy period. I think we were working on the daily survey and implementing all of the automation for the emails that go out to the line managers when something bad or something good has happened, and really needed to get that sorted. I was really busy on another project, and I just said, Beth, I think this is possible, but can you just go and like see if it's possible and try it? And she came back to me less than a day later being like, yeah, I've done it. And I was like, oh, wow, like you've just gone and
And
done.
she was super happy and excited and proud to show you.
And it was like that tipping point where all of a sudden they're then doing work autonomously, and they're doing things that are amazing that you don't even know how to do. You know, if I'd known how to do it, I probably would have pointed her in the right direction, but I didn't know. So I was like, you're going to have to go in and find this out. I think, yeah, it's once you get to that point with a new person in the team, and that's really fun.
I think so we're very fortunate in this sort of intern and early career professional recruitment that we genuinely get to pick from thousands, which is really mad. Once we've selected the people who are going to come to final assessment or start with us, I think it's that proactivity that makes the difference. So I've heard it played back from, you and Elle and Charles and Dan, that I think it's the person having the excess mental capacity, the energy and the speed of thought to have spare capacity so they can finish the task you've given them, but also be thinking about how could I help? So I appear to be stuck on Formula One analogies today, so I'll continue rocking with it. They say about like Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso that when they're driving, they only need 70% of their brain to drive the car, so they can think about where they are on the track and the race strategy. Whereas if it needs all your brain power to think about racing and keeping the car on the track, you can't do the other bits.
Yeah.
So I think when we see those interns or new starters that have enough spare mental capacity to say, oh, could I help with this? Can I get involved in that? Or even to take something off your to-do list, or that's when we know we've got someone really special, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's when they're excited to do that as well. This is what I mean when I want someone who's really curious and wants to solve a problem. I think Beth was excited to learn how to do something, or to work out something that I didn't know how to do. That's like an exciting thing for her to do.
Amazing. You are also famed for being the person that does annual leave and just adventures the best. What have been some of the things that you've disappeared off on annual leave for?
Oh, all sorts of things. Lots of surfing holidays. Weeks surfing in Portugal, Morocco. Rock climbing holidays, bouldering in Fontainebleau. I had 4 weeks in Southeast Asia and Japan, including a little bit of work time as well.
You changed what I thought was possible in that regard. So I remember when, I can't remember if you spoke to me first or who said, oh, Lara wants to go traveling for a month and work in South. And I was like, and I think it would have been anyone else, my first reaction would have been, But since I spend all my time celebrating your various adventures, I can't really say no to an adventure, can I? Because,
well, I think you probably could have.
Well, it didn't feel right when we love the fact you do it and you just made it work seamlessly.
Yeah, it was really good fun.
Learning how to slide upside down an ice face with ice axes in the Cairngorms.
Cairngorms winter mountaineering course. That was really good.
You don't do boring, Lara.
No, definitely not. It's what annual leave's for, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Adventures planned for this year?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I feel awful because I actually don't have that much planned yet this year.
I mean, that's maybe because your new lifestyle is daily adventures.
That's true. So
since your first podcast, you've relocated?
Yeah, I'm now living in Kendal, just outside the Lake District,
which is the outdoor capital of the UK.
England, definitely.
Yeah, that's true. You can nip Cairngorms for the other bit.
People who live in Fort William or Aviemore might have something to say about that. But yeah, I do feel like now I have adventures every day from the door. So maybe that's a good point. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about it a little bit less.
Love it. Lara, what's the one question I haven't asked you wish I had?
Oh, I should have remembered that you were going to ask me this.
Everyone forgets, including me.
No.
I forgot, and it's my thing.
Maybe I'd like you to ask me what my favourite OC moment is.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think there's a lot, but I think one that really sticks out in my mind is when we did that, what was my first Christmas in Big LD. And we had a community open day, and it was really nice. And we met a lot of people who lived on the estate. And then we had a lovely dinner. And then there was a snowfall overnight, and we woke up and it was just an absolute Narnia winter wonderland. And the team broke into a spontaneous snowball fight. I tried to do a nice little snow angel, and then there's video evidence of you kicking snow into my face.
It wasn't just me, though, was it?
And Dan Johnson was also involved. For the record, Dan Johnson was involved.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
It was just such a... I think that was a point where I was like, this is like nowhere else I've ever worked before. It was just,
Because of the abuse.
All the abuse and just such a like fun trip. That work can be fun as well as.
I think people struggle to get that we can be both things. We can be absolutely all about performing and wanting to be brilliant, but why can't it be fun at the same time? And I get that's a juxtaposition for people who don't have the massive privilege we do of working, in the sector we do at the time we do, but with the people we do. And I think you need all those three bits, and with the incredible backing we've had from our funders that allow us to work in this way, we are genuinely lucky, but it's also a culture that you create and be part of. And and you've been a massive part of that. You're employee number
6.
And we're like 30 now, Lara, which is...
Yeah. I feel like we must have almost doubled since we last did this. I think that's what it feels like anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your favourite member of OC?
I can't answer that.
Is it Chris?
I feel like it has to be.
Yeah, I think it is Chris. Yeah. That might be our new question.
Isn't Chris everyone's favourite member?
Yeah, well, certainly he thinks. Lara, you're an absolute joy to have as part of the team, and OC wouldn't be what it is without you. Thank you for bringing the fun and the data and the adventure. We appreciate you.
Thanks very much.